Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 91 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we will give out some awards to look back on the 2022 NASCAR season. Also, we'll get to our news and notes. A lot of headlines going on in the NASCAR world as we look ahead to 2023. And we'll have our Ask David segment coming up at the end of the show. As always, Let's Go Racing with David Starr is presented by TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter came aboard as the primary sponsor this year in David's 08 Ford Mustang. I want to tell you a little bit more about what they do. TicketSmarter is a national ticket resale marketplace with tickets to over 125,000 live events, including NASCAR and other forms of motorsports. Fans can get tickets to every NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Camping World Truck race throughout the season. For the best deals on tickets, visit TicketSmarter.com to get your tickets today. That's TicketSmarter.com. David Starr joins us right now, fresh off the Thanksgiving weekend. David, how was your holiday weekend, man?
Man, it was amazing. Really busy. Ate a lot of food, probably gained 2 or 3 pounds, but I've probably lost it by now. Got to spend some great time with my family, and man, I love Thanksgiving. Just love seeing family and just eating great food and just being so thankful for all the blessings that we all have. And how about you guys, man? What'd y'all do?
Dominic Aragon of the RacingExperts.com is here with us as well. Dom, tell us about your Thanksgiving, man.
We got to spend it in Grants, New Mexico with my mom and dad and grandma and grandpa. So Felice and the baby and I, we ended up making the trip out to Grants for a couple of days. It was nice to see everybody. My brother was in town. We had a lot of fun. And I know in Texas, it's a different kind of chili, but we were controversial and we put red chili instead of gravy on our mashed potatoes. So we were those people. We were the New Mexican Thanksgiving, and of course, football and that tropical punch drink I told you about a couple of years ago, Tyler. Of course, that was on hand too. So a lot of good times.
Very nice. I certainly enjoyed myself. The best part of the Thanksgiving holiday is when you go out with your old buddies the night before on a Blackout Wednesday, and you know the drill.
Oh, that's what it's called, huh?
Yes, that is what it's called. I did partake. Went back home, back to Tulsa, saw my mom and dad, my sister, and everybody. It was all good. And unfortunately, the Cowboys did win on Thursday, so that was unfortunate. But other than that, everything was great for this Thanksgiving holiday as far as I'm concerned. But, guys, we got a lot to discuss here as we are a couple weeks removed from the season coming to a close. And this week, the NASCAR Awards banquet is taking place in Nashville, Tennessee. And the NASCAR Awards is always a big deal. And we figured we would kind of do our own awards here to look back on the season and such. And David, I know you've been to some of these awards banquets in the past. You know, we've seen Xfinity and Truck do their own as well. And Cup for years was in Las Vegas for a while, and they did theirs in New York, whatever. That's always been a pretty unique event, these end of the year awards banquets, right?
Man, it's a big deal, man. For years, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series just, they honored, recognized the top 10 in the truck, and the NASCAR Truck Series for years had its own banquet. Each national series had their own banquet. And then I think 5 or 6 years ago, NASCAR made an announcement that the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series would share a banquet. And when they did that, they only took the champion through 5th place on each of those divisions. And so instead of, recognizing in the top 10, they would only do 5 for trucks and 5 for Xfinity. So it changed up the banquets from what we were familiar with. But man, awards banquets are awesome, man. That you get to dress up, wear a tuxedo, and man, bring your wife or your girlfriend, and just it's really, NASCAR does a great job putting these award banquets on with the entertainment with music, and then the entertainment that they usually have a comic there entertaining everybody. But it's just man, what an honor it is to finish in the top 5 of any given NASCAR series, Truck Series, Xfinity, or even Cup. it's a big deal, and those award banquets are very special, and the memories you'll never forget, man. Pretty cool deal to be a part of that.
Dominic, you've been to the NASCAR Awards banquets in the past. What was your experience like going to these? I know we've seen some memorable moments throughout the years. The first one that comes to mind for me is Dale Earnhardt doing the milk salute to Jeff Gordon, and Jeff crying when he won his first title and all that. That's what comes to mind to me. What about you? Tell me about your experience going to these awards banquets.
Sure, I can give you a little bit of, I guess, a behind the scenes, kind of behind the curtain look. I've been twice. I went in 2017 and 2018, so I got to go back-to-back years when it was held in Las Vegas before it moved to Nashville. And man, it was a lot of fun. They had it at the Wynn Las Vegas, and one of the nicest 5-star hotels on the Las Vegas Strip. And they have the red carpet out. They have all the backdrops with the NASCAR logos and everything. And they really dress it up like this all-star Hollywood kind of night. That's the best way to describe it. And like David said, the drivers are there with their distinguished guests, their girlfriends, their wives, their families, and it's a really cool time. And the media gets pretty cool access to all the drivers as they walk through, and then they go to their areas in the ballroom. They have their own assigned seating. Like, it's cool. Like, at the core of it, it's a banquet. It's an end of the year kind of thing, but it's also a formal way to recognize the champion. And, oh, by the way, it's televised, and they always have some cool guests and surprises and comedians and MCs, and they do a really good job with it. And I can tell you, in those 2 years too, in 2017, they had an after party and the media were allowed to go, and kind of we mingled with everybody. It was a lot of fun. Train played a private concert that year. And then in 2018, ZZ Top, one of the guys, it was not Dusty Hill, but I'm slipping on the other guy's name. One of the bearded guys, right? Billy Gibbons. Billy Gibbons was there, and he did a concert with Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction, and Sebastian Bach from Skid Row, the drummer from Skid Row, and then one of the singers from Run DMC. So they had like an all-star group, and they had an open bar. I can tell you that was a lot of fun a couple of years ago.
That was the best part, right, Dom?
Oh, of course, Dave. I may or may not remember some of that night.
Hey, I like that. I like the way that sounds, Dom. Sounds like you enjoyed yourself there. Jay Moore was always my favorite awards banquet host. I think he's hosted more than anybody else has. And Jay's a real NASCAR fan too, so he knows what he's talking about. I always enjoyed when Jay Moore hosted. I also remember, Dom, I think this may have been the last time Jay Moore hosted. And he had pointed to Danica sitting up front, and he said, "This is strange seeing you up here," towards the front, and that did not go over well with Danica. Everybody else thought it was great. That was iconic.
Oh, absolutely. One of those frozen in moment times it's forever going to live on YouTube. And Jay Moore did a great job. And I think as a kid, didn't appreciate him because really great. Jay Moore is doing this again. He does it another year, but then he wasn't there for a few years. So he came back and hosted. And I think that year you're talking about was maybe 2014, 2015. And to see him back, it was nostalgic for sure. I remember Frank Caliendo hosting it. I think Reba hosted one year, and she sang. So they've had some really, really good guests and really good all-stars to help MC the event. It's always a great time, and it's definitely a made-for-TV type production. But yeah, like I said, core of it, it's a banquet at the end of the day, but they really dressed it up really nice, and it's done really well, executed really well.
One more thing before we get to our awards. David, I know you've shared this story before, but in case people don't know, 1 year at the NASCAR Awards for you in the Truck Series, I believe Rick Allen kind of put you on the spot, right?
Yeah, he did. They were used to doing that, I mean, my wife, Kim, I dated her for, I don't remember how many years, but, you get so close with the media people and the television commentators, and, you become like family, and Kim was at a majority of the races back then, and they just fell in love with her, and they spent a lot of time together. And one of, as the years clicked off and I was dating her, it was kind of, they really liked to give me a hard time at the banquets about, hey, what are you waiting on when you getting engaged? They put the pressure, they put you on the hot seat. You know what I mean? I wanted to talk about, the season, the races we won, and, talk about my team. And that wasn't on their agenda. They just wanted to see me squirm, and they made me squirm there for a couple of years. But it was pretty cool when I finally got engaged, and I wasn't on the hot seat anymore. But it was just all in fun and really cool to, all these the people that we see on TV, the commentators that really make it fun for the fans to watch it and kind of give you the behind the scenes stuff. And they're really great people, and you become family with them. You know what I mean? And but that was always fun.
Yeah, that's.
I think my wife enjoyed it more than I did. Our girlfriend at the time.
Yeah, that's great, guys. Let's go over a couple things here. First off, the MVP or the best driver of the year of some sorts, whatever you want to call this. David, there's two ways to look at this. Obviously, you point to Joey Logano, the champion, and the way that Joey finished the season, as strong as anybody. That was a clutch performance by him down the stretch. That playoff run he was able to put together. But I would also say, if you're talking like MVP, looking big picture, whatever, the guy with the most wins, Chase Elliott, 5 wins this year, had a really good year, won the regular season title here. And for as much as we've talked about Joey Logano this season, I don't think this year should be forgotten of the effort of Chase Elliott and that 9 team too. They had a championship caliber season. Ultimately, it was just the 22 that came home with the title, though.
Man, there's so many, not only Chase Elliott with having the most wins, but, I look at Tyler Reddick. Lots of speed, contender a lot. I don't know how many races Tyler won, but man, he really, he was contender week in and week out. And then the one that just, I think everybody would agree with me, Ross Chastain. I think he's probably the MVP of the season for me. He brought a lot of excitement, entertainment, just all the way to the end of the last race, So, but Joey Logano obviously are a champion. Chase Elliott winning the most races. I mean, it's hard. How do you pick? All you go by is your champion. You know what I mean? But because he's a champion of the year. But man, there were so many. If you had to give out that award, that would be a hard one to judge. You know what I mean? Because there's so many MVPs of the season. You know what I'm saying? I mean, for me, it would be hard. I'd like to hear y'all's opinion on it.
How about you, Dom?
No, I'm with you there, Tyler. I think Chase Elliott, when you look at the big picture, and when I think MVP, I'm thinking like, maybe I'm ripping off the NFL here, but they look at the regular season and they base those awards off what you did over the 16, now 17 game season. I'd base it off the regular season, and Chase Elliott certainly was the strongest driver throughout that. And yeah, he made the championship 4, had a great all-around season, just couldn't put it together in one race at Phoenix. But I would say Chase Elliott would be the MVP of the 2022 season. Led a bunch of laps, won the most races, was consistently up front in a season full of parity.
Scored the most overall points.
Scored the most overall points too. So that needs to be, I think, accounted for as well. That shows super consistent.
Yeah, I think so. How about a breakout star of the year? We mentioned kind of the names that come to mind already, and this is the one that could go a number of directions. I mean, Ross Chastain, obviously, what he did with that Trackhouse team. You could point to his teammate, Daniel Suarez. You could point to Tyler Reddick, although I feel like Tyler Reddick was good the last few years, but this was the first year that he finally broke through and won races here. A number of guys like I could point to. I could even say Chase Briscoe or Austin Cindric or something like that. I mean, there's a number of guys that were breakout performers this year, Dom.
I would agree with that, and I think names that come to mind on that are the Trackhouse guys. I don't think we expected to see, I certainly didn't expect to see Trackhouse Racing make it as far as they did with their 2 drivers. And Ross Chastain with the wall ride, possibly the move of the year, and the performance he had, winning 2 races and being consistently up front as well. I mean, Ross Chastain, certainly a breakout season, and maybe on a lesser scale. And yeah, he didn't make the playoffs, but I think overall, the one driver that really impressed me with his speed was Michael McDowell. 12 top 10 finishes, 1 in 3 races he's finishing inside the top 10. And it looked like Front Row Motorsports as an overall kind of broke out. And he statistically had a better season than his Daytona 500 winning season from last year. Career year for Michael McDowell, and I think his 14th year in the Cup Series. Those are drivers that stick out to me. How about you, Starr?
Yeah, man, I agree with you on Michael McDowell because, man, what a feel-good story. I mean, just lots of top 10 finishes, and surprising to see him running so good consistently this year, you know. And I'd agree with you on the Trackhouse drivers, both of them. Ross Chastain, obviously, man, he was just so entertaining week in and week out, whether he was winning or running into the other drivers. You know, he was always brought a lot of excitement to him, you know, with him on his way. But man, Daniel Suarez did just a tremendous job as well. Man, it's just yeah, but it'd be the Trackhouse guys, man. I think those two guys, and then you know Austin Cindric and God dang, what's the other driver there? Stuart Haas.
Chase Briscoe.
Chase Briscoe. Those guys had great seasons, you know, and I think it was Austin Cindric that won the Daytona 500 as a rookie. That was amazing, you know, and I don't know. There's you know, there was a lot of you know, those four drivers come to mind. But man, you know, I look at just, you know, it was just a great season, and the parity we had, all the different winners, and guys we wasn't really used to seeing run up front. You know, I think back to the Atlanta race and watching Corey LaJoie almost win his first NASCAR race. That was kind of cool. But man, just it was just a great year, and the you know, a lot of the guys that we were used to seeing running up front over the years, it was refreshing to see a bunch of new faces. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. How about comeback driver of the year? For me, you know, I know we've talked to the other ones that there were several names you could mention, but there's only one name for me that fits this category. And I don't know if you guys are thinking the same thing, but when I say this, I think we're all going to be on the same page. Eric Jones. Eric Jones has to be that comeback driver of the year. I mean, we saw him lose his ride there at Joe Gibbs Racing. First year there at Richard Petty Motorsports was not great. And then this year they bring over, you know, GMS gets involved, and their program stepped up a lot. And Eric Jones answered the call, and he was running up front and did big things for that program. And if you want to know how good of a driver Eric Jones is, look what his teammate didn't do, basically, in Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon struggled all year long, and Eric Jones was running up front, and that team was getting better every week. And they ultimately ended up winning the Southern 500. And you have to think he's going to be a playoff contender next year. For me, that's the easy call here, David, is Eric Jones for comeback driver of the year.
Man, you know, he very impressive, lots of speed all year long. You know, you just knew, kind of remind me of Michael McDowell, but he was just, man, all year, you know, Eric Jones was fast, but he's a winner, man. I mean, we knew Eric Jones is capable of winning races. You give him the right organization, the right team, the right engineering, crew chief. But man, what GMS has done with Eric Jones and their program, man, and like you said, Tyler, I believe that you have to say that Eric Jones and that GMS team for 2023, they're going to be a championship contender. You know, I was so impressed with Eric Jones all year long. You know, and it's kind of interesting because there's a 2-car organization there. One of them was consistently near the front, and the other one wasn't. And you know, there's several reasons. You know, we could analyze that all day long. But Eric Jones is just a wheel man, and man, they gave him some great race cars, and we wheeled him to the front. And it was cool to see that, you know, Richard Petty and the GMS team running so strong all year. They ran so strong that our 7-time champion Jimmy Johnson wanted to invest in that organization. That says a lot about, you know, and I think, and I asked the question, I'm not 100% positive on this, but I think Jimmy Johnson really was impressed with Eric Jones and wanted to be part of that movement, that organization, because he sees lots and lots of potential for championships with that combination for the future. You know what I mean? So it's just, I think what Eric Jones did behind the wheel, what Petty GMS did as an organization, and then now Jimmy Johnson stepping in to run some races and be part of the ownership, says a lot about that organization. And Tyler, I agree with you. I think we're going to hear a lot more about Eric Jones and that team for 2023.
Dom, how about you? Is Eric Jones the obvious choice here?
I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to go with David Starr's guy. He picked like 20 times to win a race this year. Kevin Harvick.
Yeah.
2 wins.
I mean, what I would differ, though, is Kevin wasn't bad the last couple of years, though. Like, Eric fell off in no man's land, you know?
I will agree with that. And really hearing Eric break that down, I don't know if you guys or any of you listeners took a listen to when he was on the Dale Jr. Download, I think about a month and a half ago. He really broke down how he lost his ride at Joe Gibbs Racing, kind of picked up the pieces, and was in this new spot where he had to pick up a new team and what they have built at Petty GMS Racing, and how that journey was from getting fired that week of the Michigan race in 2020 to going on to win the Southern 500 2 years later. No, that's a great comeback story. I would just say, though, I think for the sake of argument, because let's be honest, I love to argue, Kevin Harvick would be another contender for that comeback driver, because he won 2 races back-to-back, looked like he was on the outside in with the playoffs, won that race at Michigan, backed it up the next week at Richmond. We were talking, David, that it had been almost 2 years that Kevin Harvick had not won a race, and then he won 2 back-to-back, easily made the playoffs. Now, didn't have the run of the playoffs, I think, like a lot of people would have expected, but I still think some sort of comeback there, because he could have very easily been in Martin Truex Jr.'s spot and not even make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kevin. You can't ever count him out, you know, and Rodney Childress as crew chief, you know, they you know, I think, was it 2 years ago when they won 9 races, 10 races? I forget what year it was. Recently, there was a rule change on the body. And, man, when that rule change came out, it really, whatever they had figured out, whatever this rule change was, really affected their program. And, man, they struggled. We know they struggled. They struggle. But the people, you know, you heard, I heard, and maybe y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, there was some controversy with Harvick and some other drivers during the races, and they were, I think a couple of times I heard a couple of the drivers say he's just very frustrated and he's over the hill, you know what I mean? And you know, and Kevin Harvick, you can't count him out. You can't count him out for 2023 either. I mean, I think once they started figuring out this next gen race car, and they wasn't very good the first half of the season. I mean, we kept saying next week. I did, because you just knew that it was going to happen, man. And it took a little bit longer than we expected. But, man, to win back-to-back races, that says a lot about that organization and their drive. But you can't ever count out Kevin Harvick, you know, and he still has the ability and the want to. And I think they'll be a contender next year. And y'all correct me if I'm wrong. You know, he was running good in one of the races. He had some bad luck. Don't remember what he wrecked or something happened, and he needed to win or finish in the top 3. And he was having a good race somewhere. I want to say Darlington. And unfortunately, his car caught on fire, you know what I mean? And it knocked him out of the deal, you know, just nothing he did or his team did. It was just kind of a freak thing that car caught on fire and it knocked him out of the playoff. He didn't advance. But I agree with you, Dominic. You can't ever count out Kevin Harvick. And, man, you know, when they lit the torch, they lit it big, because to win back-to-back races, that says a lot about the driver, the whole organization. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Guys, a couple more, and then we'll move on to our news and notes segment here. Last driver award here, an award you don't want to get. Biggest disappointment this year. 2 names that come to mind for me, Dom. Martin Truex who you kind of talked about a second ago, and then Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski flopped as an owner in his first year. That team really struggled. They came out looking good in the duels at Daytona. Then they got that bad penalty, never really recovered. He was getting outrun by his teammates. Brad did not resemble anything of what we saw of him when he was at Penske. I mean, to me, those are the two names. I'd probably say Brad was a bigger disappointment, but Martin, especially considering his teammates were running good and he was the weakest link.
Oh, I agree. And with Brad Keselowski, I don't know. I've talked this at length with Tyler off air. I don't know if you felt the same way, David, but I felt like I got a false narrative with Roush, Fenway, Keselowski racing was what we saw in Daytona. Chris Buescher wins one of the duels. Brad Keselowski wins the other. Keselowski leads the most laps in the 500. He's leading on the white flag lap. Keselowski's the point leader leaving Daytona. Granted, super speeder racing, but I thought that's what we were going to see. And then he qualified up front at Fontana, was running, I think, top 10 before the crash. I really thought we were going to see Keselowski pick up where he left off from in 2021, and it just didn't happen. I think it took 33 races for him to pick up his first top five, and he had the second top five at Martinsville, got disqualified. So very disappointing year. It was the first time since 2010 that Keselowski didn't win a race. And then with Martin Truex Jr., first time since 2014 that he didn't win a race. And that team was, what, the sixth or seventh best average finishing team throughout the year. He could have very well easily been what Ryan Blaney did this year.
Missed the playoff, right.
And missed the playoffs. But yeah, David, I'm curious if you felt the same way about Keselowski, if you felt that at the beginning of the year, we got this kind of false narrative that, hey, the 6 cars are going to be up front, or at least going to be towards the front, like I did.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I was really, it was impressive to see him, both the Roush Fenway Keselowski team win the duel, but each duels, and I'm thinking back. I'm just thinking about Roush Fenway Racing over the years. They have struggled and struggled big, and when we heard the news that Brad was going to have ownership stake in that team, and he was going to lead Roger Penske. I mean, that's big. They were really looking for Brad to really put some fire back in that organization and really help them get more speed back into those cars, because I don't know. I think 4 or 5 years, they have struggled for years, 4 or 5 years, maybe longer. And, and I was just thinking when Brad made the announcement that he was going to leave Roger Penske and he was going to have ownership in the Roush Fenway Group racing team, and then he would be part owner and driver. I knew there was a big challenge. That was a big challenge, just a challenge to go over there and try to help them speed up that transition to getting back to where they once were. But and I agree with you when the season started and winning both those races, both dual 125s, it was like, wow, because man, it didn't go good for the next 5 or 6 months, but I got to say that, what's Brad's teammate?
Chris Buescher.
Yeah.
Chris Buescher did a great job. He was consistent. He had a lot of speed. He won a race. He really outperformed his boss, and I thought that was interesting. You know what I mean? He ran great, and you knew a win was coming, and it did come, and that was a big boost for that organization, But I was surprised that Chris Buescher delivered the first victory there, and it wasn't Brad, But man, it's and that's one. That was one I totally agree with you. Brad Keselowski and Roush Fenway, whatever they call the name of that organization, but that was a big disappointment. It looked like towards the end of the year, the last 4 or 5 races, they were seeing a little bit of glimpse of some better speed than what they had all year, running towards the front. But then they were nailed with disqualifications and stuff like that. So be interesting to see how the off season reflects on that organization, and see, how they come back for their sophomore year as Brad being a new owner, and to see how the team reacts. You know, they're going to perform better, and but that's kind of interesting. And really, the other one that y'all mentioned is Martin Truex Jr. I mean, if y'all would have said, you know, if we'd have talked about this before the season started, I would have never mentioned his name of the guy that wasn't going to win a race. I mean, you're talking about a championship caliber organization. You're Martin Truex is crew chief. That's championship caliber. That's former champions, you know, and for them not to win a race and to see the other cars there at Joe Gibbs Racing win races, it was definitely surprising. And I think the new next gen car was such a big challenge for Martin Truex and maybe his crew chief. You know, the rumor was, and you guys know more about this than I do, you know, they were saying Truex was so disappointed with his performance and the new car and not really getting it figured out that he was talking about maybe this might have been his last year, you know, and I think the news broke not that long ago that he was going to race another year. And when I heard that, and y'all can reflect back on this, and one of the things where this is kind of interesting, because is he going to announce that this is it for himself? And if people were saying if he does announce, it's just because it's been just a horrible year for him. He doesn't like this new next gen car, but yeah, those these drivers y'all mentioned are definitely two of the biggest, you know, disappointments of the season.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think Martin has been the same driver since Cole Pearn left. If I was Martin and if I was Joe Gibbs, I'd be calling up Cole Pearn saying, how much do you want to come back? Like, name your price tag, you know? I mean, like, that was arguably at the time the best driver crew chief pairing in the sport, and Martin hasn't been the same driver since. So it seems like he's gotten worse, Dom, every year since those two departed, essentially. So,
well, and James Small, I mean, yeah, they've won races, and he was the runner-up in points last year. They did have a good playoff 10-race run, but yeah, he just hasn't been the same. I know what you mean. Kind of like when Jimmy Johnson and Chad Canal split up, or Jeff Gordon and Ray Evernham, or Kirk Shelmerdine and Dale Earnhardt. Just wasn't the same after.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't. All right, here. Gutsiest performance of the year. This one's pretty easy, right? It's Ross Chastain in Martinsville, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would. Before that, had you asked me before Martinsville, tell me if you guys would agree. Corey LaJoie's top 5 at Atlanta in March, only because he spun out in stage 1, went airborne. Now, granted, all 4 tires landed back on the pavement. Actually, one of the friends of the show, Christian Coley, got a great photo of that car doing the 180 and completely off the ground. Got a little bit of damage, but LaJoie came back and finished, I think, 5th. It was his first career top 5 in the Cup Series. That'd be my other candidate, but that would have been before Martinsville.
Yeah. And 2 more here. Crew chief of the year. Now, I have an interesting one on this for me. I look at Randall Burnett, the crew chief on the 8 car with Tyler Reddick. They stepped up their program. They were good on everything. Short tracks, dirt. Should have won that race at Bristol. The road courses and all that. I mean, this was the first year, Dom, where I looked at that 8 car and I said that it was the first time ever where the driver wasn't better than the car, where maybe at times even the car was better than the driver. I mean, credit to Randall Burnett and that RCR camp for stepping up their program, and they're going to be ready when Kyle Busch comes there next year. They won't miss a beat.
No, I don't think they will, and I think that's a great crew chief. That's hard to argue against, because that 8 car off sequence at the road courses, or just different calls to get that 8 car up front more often than I think we have seen in the last 2-3 years. And when are we talking about Tyler Reddick running up front in 2020 or 2021? Yeah, they'd squeak out top 10 finishes, but it really was a breakout year. And I think Randall Burnett would be deserving of the crew chief of the year award.
How about you, David? What crew chief stood out to you this year?
Man, I want to say, talking about the Chris Buescher, I don't know who his crew chief was, but I just felt like they really ran good. had lots of speed consistently all year long. So Chris Buescher's crew chief. Michael McDowell's crew chief, because Michael McDowell had a really breakout season. Consistent, lots of speed.
And that's Blake Harris, who's going to be the crew chief for the 48 car next year.
Yeah, Blake Harris, man.
He's also the husband of Caitlin Vincey from Fox. Yeah.
Yeah, did a phenomenal job. Those two guys, I don't know who they were, but the way those cars ran, they were I'd have to say those two crew chiefs for myself,
Yeah, Scott Graves on top of the pit box there with Chris Buescher. He'd been up there with Ricky Stenhouse, Daniel Suarez in the Cup Series, and he's a two-time NASCAR Xfinity crew chief with Chris Buescher in 15 and Daniel Suarez in 2016.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. Best new track, and we'll say this two ways. Could be a new track completely on the circuit or a repave or whatever it may be. Obviously you had Gateway, you had the LA Coliseum. For me, guys, I love the Atlanta repave. It provided two exciting races. I hope that's the future of mile and a half. So I hope we have more Atlantas. David, of those new configurations, whether it was Atlanta or the Coliseum or Gateway there in St. Louis, bringing it back to the schedule, what was your favorite of the new tracks this year?
Well, I think you're right. The Atlanta Motor Speedway tracks, the LA Coliseum was nuts. That was crazy, exciting. And, but you left out one. I think the racetrack in Austin, Texas, COTA.
Well, that was his second year.
Oh, okay.
It was the first time we'd seen it in its full figure without any rain.
Absolutely. That produced a first-time winner and just crazy racing. It was entertaining. But I'd have to agree with you, Tyler. I really enjoyed the two races at Atlanta. They people loved it, and it was it was amazing that Atlanta Motor Speedway was like Talladega and Daytona, and the excitement was over the top. So I totally agree with that pick there.
How about you, Dom?
Man, I got to agree with that because I was there for that race in March, and that was so cool to see those cars zip around that track, and especially the Cup race like a super speedway race. Now, a lot of the drivers didn't necessarily like the racing, but from a fan standpoint, absolutely. Who doesn't like to see that? Who doesn't like to see parity? Pack racing, cars going 190 miles an hour, and of course, the occasional crash. Let's be honest, fans enjoy all of that. So Atlanta provided all of that, provided great opportunities for comers and goers, drafting, slingshotting. It was great racing. And Tyler, I would not be opposed if that happens at other tracks down the road too.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Best rivalry this year. Dom, start with you.
I'm going to go with the obvious one. Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain. And Mike Davis said it best on the Dale Earnhardt Jr. podcast earlier this year. I hope Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain never become friends. This is what the sport needs. And it was great to see the back and forth and the on-track skirmishes and the battling back and forth, using the media back and forth. It was great. I loved every bit of it.
How about you, David?
Man, I'd have to agree with Dominic, man. Watching Denny and Ross go after each other week in and week out was amazing. And I just, man, I don't remember what race it was, but God, it must have been St. Louis. I think it was St. Louis, man. It was like, man, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know what I mean? I mean, Ross got into Denny and man, it's just the cat and mouse, just what they were doing on the racetrack, man. We ain't seen that in a long time, but I'd have to say, I totally agree with Dominic. That was probably the best, most entertaining driver feud, all year long. We just kept us on our toes watching it,
I'll take it two steps back. I would say Ross versus the field. He was the most disliked driver among the drivers of anybody by a mile. The thing to me, Dom, was like, people would probably try to paint Ross as a bad guy. I don't actually think Ross is a bad guy at all. I don't even think he's trying to play the villain role of some sorts. I think that he just kind of, it was his second full-time year. He made a lot of mistakes and he was reckless at times. And I think he'll learn from it. I don't think that he was intentionally trying to be a jackass out there on the racetrack by any means. I mean, but nobody, I think he kind of, was pissing on their territory a little bit. He was a threat, to a lot of these drivers out there. It wasn't just Denny. It was Kyle Busch. It was Martin Truex. It was Joey Logano. Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson. We even heard his teammate Daniel Suarez didn't like him doing that move up top to win at Martinsville. I mean, he pissed everybody off.
He really did. And like I said, or like you said, I don't think he was meaning to. He was just Ross Chastain being Ross Chastain, being aggressive. But I think, too, the different company that he's used to racing against. He was not in good equipment in the Cup Series early on. He raced in mid-pack equipment in the Xfinity Series. And I've heard drivers say this across the season. Drivers race differently mid-pack. Drivers race differently up front. And I think that was a learning curve for Ross Chastain, learning how to race against some of these guys, learning how to race against Cup Series past champions, multi-race winners. Definitely different when you have the equipment that can get up there to the front and do it.
Yeah, I think so. And an honorable mention, we didn't really see this become a true rivalry to the very end of the season. But in the Xfinity side, Ty Gibbs and Noah Gragson, and Noah straight up saying, I do not like Ty, and making it known that he basically hates the guy and has no respect for him. I think that's going to carry over into the Cup Series. We know they're both very talented race car drivers with a bright future here. That's going to be, David, I think, good for the sport. I hope that Noah and Ty both compete and that this thing builds a bit. Ty's got some enemies of his own already. Noah seems to be one of them, and it seems like Noah is going to feed off this rivalry between him and Ty Gibbs, which I think is going to go on for years to come here.
Well, it just remains to be seen. We'll see. We'll see how it all works out.
Okay, are you hoping, Tyler, that those two never become friends?
I hope they never become friends. Yes. All right. Our news and notes segment coming up in just a moment. Today's show presented by TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter, the official ticket resale marketplace, a worldwide technology raceway where David won in 2004. Fans can also get tickets to any type of event, including sports, concerts, and theater productions. TicketSmarter is committing to helping those in need by donating $1 from every transaction to various charity organizations. Head over to TicketSmarter.com to find tickets for upcoming events. That's TicketSmarter.com. Dominic Aragon from the RacingExperts.com is here with us with a look at the headlines from around the sport. Dom, we got a few things going on this week.
We got a few things going on, Tyler. Let's first take a look at the NASCAR on Fox rotating booth. So we saw in the 2022 season where there was not a third permanent fixture in the NASCAR booth with Mike Joy and Clint Boyer, but rather a rotating booth after Jeff Gordon left from a full-time position 6 years with the company. We saw drivers like Matt Kenseth, Jimmy Johnson. Jeff Gordon even came back for a couple races. Reynolds, Jamie McMurray, a lot of different people that came back to do some races. It looks like Fox is going to continue that in 2023. Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal is reporting that this is potentially leaving the door open if Kevin Harvick does step away full-time in 2023 or after the 2023 season, rather, that Harvick could fill that role in 2024. Fox is leaving that open as a possibility. It'll be remaining to be seen. But, guys, I'm really excited to see if they're going to bring in some more drivers, maybe people we haven't seen yet or some of the familiar faces that we saw in the booth this year. But personally, like I said last year, I think Jimmy Johnson would be really cool to see back or to see in the booth.
I think we're going to see Jimmy at some point in the booth. I think it's a mistake not to have a full-time analyst. You can still bring guests in, and, NBC does 4, full-time people. Personally, I thought Danica was their best guest analyst they had last year. I was hoping they'd give Danica the full-time gig. I thought she did an excellent job of the analyst they brought in. Jeff, of course, was good. Tony was good. That's going to be interesting to see who they put together in the booth there. David, who do you like there when they bring in these guest analysts? I would think we're probably going to see Kurt Busch at some point this year now that he's retired here.
Yeah, there's so many. There's a lot of good options out there, but you kind of want to see some consistency. You want 3 analysts that really that know the sport inside and out. And then for me, Kurt Busch, Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, bringing in, obviously Harvick will be racing, but there's so many. Danica did a great job. Tony Stewart, bringing in a driver analyst, as a guest. They can change it up. But for me, I'd like to see, 3 commentators, your consistent 3 all year long, and then bring in a driver. You know what I mean? That's kind of my opinion on it. I know this is starting to be it's kind of a big story, who's going to be the analysts, what are they doing? I mean, it's starting to be big news. And for me, you just want to see a good broadcast when I'm watching the Cup races on Sunday. I like really good insight on what's going on, knowledge. And, it's cool to have 3 race and analysts that really know the sport inside and out. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. And they just keep rotating drivers, or are they going to eventually pick one to be the third one, So it's kind of interesting.
Dom, it doesn't feel like this is a permanent thing, though. I mean, you watch any other sport. Take example of the NFL. If I'm watching Monday Night Football, I'm getting Joe Buck and Troy Aikman every week. And I love the consistency. Joe and Troy call an awesome game. They're the best, I think, in the NFL. And I love listening to Joe and Troy. I don't need them to bring in anybody else. This Fox, I hope they figure it out soon. I hope that we only have one more year of this guest thing, and then they find a full-time analyst, whether it's Danica, whether it's Kevin Harvick, whoever it may be, and then call it good.
Well, I see where you're coming from on the consistency factor certainly is important. I think for the listener at home and the viewer at home, they want that. They want the same voices or the same consistency that they know they're going to get. But I can see the other side of the token there too, where it's so cool. You have all these different people. Tony Stewart certainly led the way. And then we had Jeff Gordon, Matt Kenseth, Danica Patrick. It was cool to see the rotation. And I think that's also exciting in itself, because maybe they're thinking of bringing in other guys that have been away for a long time. I know we saw Mark Martin make a brief appearance at Fontana, Bobby Labonte, Richard Petty. I'd like to see some more of those names. Some of these guys that were relevant in the 90s and the 2000s. I think it's a really cool, unique opportunity. And you're right. I don't see this going past 2023, but it's cool while we have it. And I think it's going to create some more cool memories and some notable things that can happen in the broadcast booth and some great throwbacks to the past. It's a good way to honor the sport, I think, past and present.
Yeah. What else going on, Dom?
So it looks like the Race Team Alliance, the organization that houses all the charter teams, is going to be potentially looking at some off-season exhibition races. Adam Stern, again, with the Sports Business Journal, was the first to report this on Tuesday, November 29th, that the RTA is looking with one of the sports agencies that they contract with, or work with, I should say, on the potential of looking at exhibition races, not necessarily with NASCAR and the sanctioning bodies. So, Tyler, when I look at that and kind of reading through the comments and what people were already saying about it, does this have IndyCar kart split vibes? Is this something that could make NASCAR and the RTA beneficial for both, where technology is tried out and we're not having to try it out in a points race or at a test session? This is a completely different thing, something that's not tied to points. A lot of possibilities here. This is still early on, but I'm curious to where this could end up going and who benefits the most and who could hurt the most.
So there's two things. Bob Pockris provided some clarification that if the teams do this, they cannot run NASCAR cars, and it cannot be on NASCAR tracks. If it is a separate entity from NASCAR altogether, they can't do that to keep within the testing rules. The other thing that comes to mind, you mentioned, the threat of like, hey, we'll split, putting that threat out there. It does feel like a negotiating ploy here. They want their share of the TV money that they're not getting. To me, this feels like a negotiating tactic more than anything. I do think we should have some more exhibition races. I don't think that hurts. And, maybe this is a time to experiment with the electric car that they've talked about doing of some sorts here. But at the end of the day, if it results in more races and trying out more things, giving us more stuff to talk about in the off season, I'm all for it. What say you, David?
Yeah, it's just all news to me. So this is the first I'm hearing about it. It's kind of interesting, with Tony Stewart Syria. What is that? The
That's
RX?
correct.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's man, I don't know. I really hard for me to comment on it because I just kind of wrap my brain around it. But kind of a negotiation tactic, just understanding. Um, like I said, this is just news to me. So it'd be interesting to see, in the future what comes of all this. Kind of interesting. I hadn't heard this news until now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see how it all plays out. Dom,
Yeah.
also, when we left you a couple weeks ago before the holiday, we were talking about the Stewart Haas situation. What were they going to do? And we got some clarity now since then.
We certainly do have some clarity. Some promotions and demotions are certainly in the works. During that podcast that we were talking a couple of weeks ago, Ryan Preece is going full-time racing in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2023 after being the standby substitute guy for Stewart Haas Racing in 2022. Ryan Preece will pilot the number 41 Ford for Stewart Haas Racing, while Cole Custer is going back to the NASCAR Xfinity Series, still staying with the organization, but will be competing for a NASCAR Xfinity Series title. And Tyler, maybe you can help me clear up this. I didn't see anything as far as maybe a role reversal here where Cole Custer would be that reserve cup driver or maybe run select races with Rick Ware Racing like he has in the past with that SHR alliance. But I'd be curious to see if Cole does get some select cup races next year.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about cup races for Cole, but Dom, the way I look at this, two things. One, happy for Ryan Preece. This is a huge opportunity for him. He's deserving of it. Two, for Cole Custer, yeah, it is a demotion, but he hasn't been good the last 2 years. This is a chance for him to get his confidence level up. And if he does well, you look at Ford doesn't have a whole lot of options when it comes to their driver development program. I would have to think that if this is Kevin Harvick's last year, the favorite to go in that ride in 2024, assuming everything goes right in Xfinity, which I have no reason to think that Cole Custer's not going to go out there and win 10 races and win the Xfinity title next year. I would think Cole Custer has a chance to go right back up to Stewart Haas and get to that 4-car, in a year or so. So that's how this all plays out. David, what do you think of this situation? This is a gut punch to Cole Custer, a chance to kind of prove himself.
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's a lot of moving parts to it. You guys might, the business side of it, Ryan Preece is just a hell of a race car driver, but Cole Custer is also a great race car driver too. But, you got to look at the business side of it. Who has a sponsor, who doesn't. Somebody said, you guys might know this more than I do, but I thought I read that Ryan Preece is not only going to drive the race car in 2023, but he's bringing a big sponsor with him, and
yeah, he's got funding.
Yeah, he's got funding, and that might have a lot, really help the powers there at Stewart Haas make the decision, to hear y'all talk, there's lots of rumors about Kevin. This is going to be Kevin Harvick's last year, 2023. And if it is, it makes sense that Cole Custer is going to try to go win him a championship in the Xfinity side with Stewart Haas Racing, and then knowing that he will have an opportunity to go back to Cup the following season. So it's interesting, and people say, well, hey, it's a demotion. And I don't know if it's so much a demotion. It's just, am I saying that word right?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. It's just the circumstances of the business of this industry, and I don't really remember Cole Custer, who his sponsor was this season. I know he's had some different ones, but a lot of times.
It was just Haas Automation and Dixie Vodka, I think, for most of the season.
Yeah, but Haas, when you see Haas Automation on the race car, I mean, that's just Gene Haas, really the majority owner of Stewart Haas Racing. You know what I mean? So that being said, with Ryan Preece is really very capable and deserving, and I'm excited for Ryan because he's a great race car driver, and but he does bring funding with him, and I just think that you guys know as well as I do, it takes lots and lots of funding to make these big, massive organization powerhouses. It takes a lot of funding behind them, and but man, I can't see Ryan Preece and Stewart-Haas Racing not having a great year. I'm excited for Ryan Preece. I think they're going to win some races right off the bat, and I think you're going to see the future. Ryan Preece, Cole Custer, and the other two drivers. It's going to be interesting to see who their three main drivers are going to be for the future of the organization. One of them's going to be out, but I can't see. And also, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but Cole Custer's dad's the president of Stewart-Haas Racing. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting. There's a lot going on that we really don't know about, and a lot of decisions being made that we don't even consider them. But it'd be interesting to see what the future looks like at Stewart-Haas Racing.
Yeah. Dom, as the historian among us here, real quick, I can't recall of much precedent for this type of situation of a guy staying within the organization and taking a demotion down to the Xfinity Series. Granted, it is different when your dad is the president of the team, but still, this is a unique circumstance for Cole Custer to kind of prove himself and potentially go right back up to the Cup Series with Stewart-Haas next season.
Yeah, I'm trying to think here too. I'm drawing blanks on this. I can't really recall the situation where a guy's in the Cup car and then moves down to the Xfinity Series and potentially back up. Who knows how it's all going to play out? They always say don't burn bridges, especially in a small sport like this where there's not that many connections. Sure, there's a lot of people, but it really sometimes does boil down to who you know and maybe who you're related to in this situation.
Yeah. Anything else, Dom? We're moving on now.
Well, one last thing, since you're wearing the shirt, I mean, I might as well say it, right? Daniel Suarez, he and his longtime girlfriend announced, Julia Piquet, by the way, announced that they are engaged. He proposed in Monaco on Friday, November 25th. So that's why you're wearing the shirt, right?
Oh, yes. My Haas shirt, actually. Speaking of Haas, too. But yes, congrats to Daniel Suarez. Quite the year for him, David. Gets his first Cup win, makes a playoff, and gets engaged here. The trifecta year for Mr. Suarez.
No doubt about it. Seems like, man, something must be in the water. These guys are drinking. Tyler, look at Dominic, got engaged, married, and now Daniel Suarez, man. It's you better watch with the water you're drinking, Tyler. You might not be too far behind both these great guys.
I think I might be closer to marriage than I am winning a Cup race, but we'll see. We'll get to our Ask David segment in just one moment. Before we do, let's go racing with David Starr, presented by TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter came aboard as the primary sponsor this year on David's 08 Ford Mustang. We want to tell you a little bit more about what they do. TicketSmarter is a national ticket resale marketplace with tickets to over 125,000 live events, including NASCAR and other forms of motorsports. Fans can get tickets to every NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Camping World truck race throughout the season. For the best deals on tickets, visit TicketSmarter.com to get your tickets today. That's TicketSmarter.com. Time for our Ask David segment. We ask you to submit questions to us each and every week via email, davidstarrpodcast@gmail.com. On Facebook at Star Podcast, Twitter at Star Podcast is where you can find us there. And we will go to the inbox for our first question. It comes from Jose, and Jose wants to know, David, with Thanksgiving behind us now, what are you thankful for?
Man, where do you start, man? I'm just thankful for my health. I'm thankful that my wife is healthy and my kids are healthy. And man, I'm thankful to have a roof over our heads. And man, there's so much to be thankful for. I'm thankful for my friends. I'm thankful that my mom and dad are still healthy. And I mean, golly, man, it's endless. I'm thankful that I'm still healthy and get to compete in NASCAR another season and have great sponsors and great friendships. I mean, it's just, man, I'm just probably blessed more than I deserve. And, but there's a lot to give thanks and praise for sure. I could sit here on and on and on, but man, everything, man, I have a great life and I'm blessed with a beautiful family. And as long as my kids, my wife are healthy and happy, man, that's what it's all about. And I get to race in NASCAR, man. Shoot, life's good. And I get to be on a podcast with you guys.
There you
So,
go.
You're thankful you get to deal with us once a week. Yeah,
absolutely, man. Absolutely.
How about you, Dominic? What are you thankful for?
Man, I'll even, I guess, make it simpler than what Dave had to say. There's so much to be thankful for, but I think of the 3 F's: faith, family, and friends. I'm very thankful for my faith has got me through some really good times and some really not some good times. And the Lord has always been there for me. And same with my family and same with my friends. And like David said, I think he said it best. I'm blessed more than could ever imagine or hope to be. And know that could all be taken away tomorrow. So just very thankful for everything I have and all the people around me. And it's an awesome life, man. I am definitely blessed more than I deserve. How about you, Tyler?
I was just reflecting on this the other day, and I was thinking about this, guys, that, my life that I'm living is just stupidly awesome. Like, the things that I get to do and, the people I get to know and the way that people treat me, it's better than I deserve. Right. And, I look at it this way, it's not a life I deserve, but somebody's got to live it. Might as well be me. And so I'm thankful for just every day, that, none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. And, as David says all the time, we got to live every day like it's our birthdays, and my family, my friends, my job, make it all worth living, and so that's what I would say I'm thankful for, just for everything, just counting every day, count it all joy, and living the moment and make the most of it. So the next question that we have from the inbox, it comes from Lucy. And Lucy wants to know, David, are you watching the World Cup at all?
Man, everybody's crazy about the World Cup, and we just won today. That was pretty awesome. And
take that, Iran.
Yeah, man. That was awesome, man. But I'm not really following it like a lot of my friends are. I was on the phone earlier with some people, and they said they needed to get off the phone because the game was fixing to start, and some other people that I was supposed to have a conference call with them, so they postponed it until tomorrow because of the game. And but man, everybody's I'm a soccer fan, but not a huge soccer fan. But man, I know this is big for the United States, for our country. And like I worked today, I was really busy, had a lot of stuff going on, but I didn't stop for an hour and a half or 2 hours and watch the game like most of the people I know did. You know what I mean? And so I'd have to say that even though there's a lot of excitement in our country about the World Cup, I'm not really following it that closely. How about you guys?
Dom, are you watching the World Cup at all?
Not really. I'll see the updates come in on Twitter, and I'm a sports guy. I can get behind sports, and I'm not opposed to watching soccer. I'll watch it if it's on TV, but man, even with the World Cup, I'm not going to go out of my way to sit down and watch it, if that makes sense too.
Okay. I've watched every USA game. I'm a casual soccer fan myself. I'll watch the US, and check in on the other games. But it was pretty cool, guys, this game against Iran that occurred today, the time we're taping this. And we all know what's going on, the evil regime, that's headed up in Iran. And these players of the Iranian team, they stood up and spoke out against the human rights violations within their own country. and they've been threatened, and their families have been threatened by the government of that country for them speaking out. And so, as cool as it was for the U.S. to win, I thought it was cool for those guys that that they had the courage to stand up to tyranny the way that they did, and I felt for them. I was glad we won. The U.S. won, but I had a lot of respect for those Iran players. That was pretty cool for me. Just watching as a casual observer, David.
Man, I didn't realize that. That's really been some class act and a lot of courage to really speak against your own country like that.
Yeah. Dom, as we're wrapping up here, what you got going on this week? This week's always strange, isn't it? Settling back into the groove after a Thanksgiving, and then we're still, just a couple weeks away from Christmas now.
Yeah, this time of year, try to enjoy it. It slows down a little bit, and it's really nice to spend that with family and friends. And I'll be spending that with my wife and son this weekend up in Santa Fe. And also really excited, a friend of the show who's filled in a couple of times, David Swope. I'll be with him this weekend as well on ESPN Radio Albuquerque. We're going to be breaking down some NASCAR stuff, kind of like what we did on the show this week with some of the awards. We'll be talking about that on that show this weekend, 101.7, the team out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Tyler, you've been to that studio, so we're going to have a lot of fun this weekend out there.
Awesome. That'd be great. David, what are you up to this week?
Oh, man, just got a couple meetings and, putting Christmas lights up and Christmas trees and enjoying the Christmas music on the radio. Gonna catch a Christmas play, and it's my favorite time of year. Thanksgiving is so wonderful, and we talked about it. There's so much to be thankful for, and seeing a lot of family. And this is just a great time of year, to just reflect, be thankful, give praise and thanks for everything. And just seem like this time of year, everybody's happy. Christmas lights are going up everywhere, Christmas trees. I don't know. It's just a fun time of year. Also a little stressful with the racing industry, the racing business, but man, just a great time of the season for me. Like I said, working at my racing school race shop, working on some racing business, and just getting ready for Christmas. It's a lot of fun.
Very cool. That's great, guys. Me, I'm staying back here in Dallas this week. I'm going to go to the Big 12 football championship Saturday, and hopefully we see TCU win and make the college football playoffs. That'd be pretty cool. Experience all that, and just kind of kick it here. So that's all I got going on in my world, but should be a fun next couple of days. I love it, David. Just real quick, as most people know, this is my first winter in Dallas. And I'm enjoying it so much more than what Omaha is this time of year. I kid you not, Dom, make you even a little jealous here. We had a nice 80-degree day today, and it's almost December. David, is it like this every day?
Man, I wish it was, but man, it was a freaking beautiful day. It was 80 degrees. Man, I took an engine out of a race car, and I was outside and I washed it, and it was just it was just amazing how beautiful it was here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I don't know, it was just cool, man. It's a cool time of year. Here in a couple of days, it's gonna be 30 degrees. We'll be freezing, But man, Tyler, tell us about the summer of Jones again, man. I keep thinking about. It was such a.
You're already looking forward to next year.
Man, you're such a great guy, and you got an awesome job and everything. I still just ain't really figured out why that was such a failure, man. Dom, we got to help him out, man. We got to do something for Tyler to make sure that don't happen next season on that tour.
We need him to go to cooler places, I guess, or
Summer Jones was a smashing success. What are you guys talking about?
We need to get him to more racetracks, where he can see some success. Wherever he was going didn't work out for him. So hey, they had to cancel it. If he just showed up some races, he kept it going. We'd make sure it wasn't canceled.
We had a great run. We'll be back again Memorial Day weekend 2023. David can't wait. Yes.
What is that? The Summer Jones number 2?
That'll be like number 6 or 7, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It keeps getting canceled every year, yet it keeps coming back like Family Guy.
It's yeah, I mean, just the end of the season got renewed for another year. Yeah. So
it got renewed.
guys,
wow.
We gotta go. A lot of fun today. As always, you can subscribe to the show. New episodes out each and every week. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review. Don't leave us one at all. Hit the like button, subscribe, and all that. We certainly would appreciate it. Follow us on social media, Facebook.com/StarPodcast, Twitter @StarPodcast. You can email us, davidstarrpodcast@gmail.com. We'll put the checker flag out on this episode for David Starr and Dominic Aragon. I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks so long. It's been another edition of Let's Go Racing. See you next week.